America, my name is Irami Osei-Frimpong, and you are watching the Black Athenians. I come to you every Friday at 4-ish, and I try to give you a quality of political knowledge that you don't get everywhere else. And I can do that today because it so happens that I can give you a quality of insight into what your candidate, Joe Biden, for Democratic nomination for president, said and did today with Charlemagne the God. So Charlemagne the God, is thinking, you need to tell me what you're going to do for black people. And Joe Biden pretty much said, look, you're going to vote for me, or of course you're going to vote for me, or you're not black, right? So what does that mean? What does that mean? The good news is I can tell you what that means. It means that we need to understand the distinction between an abstract and a concrete universal. And I'll say this again. We need to understand the distinction between an abstract and a concrete universal. An abstract universal is a universal that just kind of picks out a characteristic in each of its particularizations, right? So a yellow book and a yellow banana are both yellow. The universal is yellow. Knowing that the book is yellow and that the banana is yellow doesn't tell you anything about what it is to be a book or a banana. Right? It's a characteristic of these particulars that are indifferent to what kind of thing the particular is. And that's an abstract universal. It just kind of picks out characteristics of these things, but it doesn't tell you anything about the kind of thing it is. Now, a concrete universal actually determines its particularizations, right? So a more concrete universal will be like a triangle, right? A triangle determines what kind of triangles there are, right? Triangles are a three-sided figure. If all the three sides are equal, it's an equilateral triangle. If two sides are equal but one isn't, it's an isosceles triangle. Or if none of the sides are equal, it's a scalene triangle. By knowing what a triangle is, you know that it differentiates itself into three different forms, and only three different forms. So knowing, you'll get real philosophy today. So knowing the genus actually tells you the kind of species, and it tells you that they're necessarily connected. If you know what a triangle is, that means you know that it's going to come into three forms. And if you know what the three forms are, that's content to what your knowledge of the triangle is. So it works together. Now, the question is, does knowing that someone is black tell you that they're going to vote for Joe Biden? Right? So we're going to get into this. We're going to get into the question, and it's going to be a very interesting next 15 minutes. First, let me hit the beat.
To the beat, y'all. Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I'll paint the White House black and ain't no future in your front. To the beat, y'all.
So a concrete universal determines its particularizations. If you know the universals, you know what kind of forms it comes in. And if you're talking about things, you not only know what kind of form it comes in, the shapes. If we're talking about actual things, you know how it functions. You know how it behaves. So for Joe Biden, what he's saying is, if you're black, I know how you're going to behave. And if you don't behave like you're supposed to, you're not being black in the right way. You don't know what it means to be black, is what Joe Biden is telling Charlemagne the God. Or you're just confused, or I know what you're telling me, you're not going to vote for me, but you're going to vote for me because I know what you are. Because being black apparently is a concrete universal. It determines its particularizations. And in this case, its relevant case, it determines how the person's going to behave. I know how you behave because I know what you are. Right? So you have to understand, it's a little bit weird that Joe Biden gets, even if being black is a concrete determination in the United States, it's a little bit weird that Joe Biden is the one who gets to decide what the content is. It's not like the kids in junior high school just assumed I knew how to play basketball and dance. But, or if I didn't know how to do those things, I wasn't actually black. Turns out that like it's a more abstract universal than that. But there are determining features. For example, if you're a descendant of slaves, if you're an African American descendant of slaves, that's going to come with some concrete determinations. You're going to know people who are poor, like lots of them. Because that's what it is to be an African American descendant of slaves. Like you're gonna, because we haven't made black communities whole from the legacy of slavery and terrorism and Jim Crow. So you're gonna know. You might not be poor, but you're gonna know people. You're not gonna have to look that hard. Because being black, we've designed the United States such that being black is a concrete determination. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we have a justice problem that we need to redress and address. But understanding that the distinction between an abstract determination that just happens to be like, the like as if color of the skin is something that just happens to be a feature of people that doesn't tell you anything else about them, or a concrete determination where the universal actually determines its differentiated particularities is actually important. Because for Joe Biden, there are two types of black people. There are black people who know their role, and their role is to vote for him. And then there are black people who don't know what it means to be black. And those are people who don't know their role and don't vote for him. And that might be a problem for our politics. That might be a problem. And make no mistake, Joe Biden is sitting in a room with two sets of advisors right now. One set of advisors is telling him, and these are probably the younger advisors who are telling him, well, Joe, you just need to come out with a conciliatory statement that explains what you meant, and still doesn't promise much, but this kind of like shows respect. And then there's an older black set of party hacks who are telling Joe, you don't have to do nothing. You just double down on what you said, because it is a time-honored tradition in American politics that the person who wins the office of the U.S. president shows the American people that they can smack around black people. And that's what you've done. And so what you've done, actually, you just kind of beat us to the punch. We were going to have you do that a little bit later, but you just double down and now maybe compliment one of the Negroes we like Kamala Harris. I'm not saying you should make her your VP pick, but you should say something nice about how you're vetting her and thinking about her. Right? So, my kid's messing with my curtains. So those are the meetings Joe Biden is taking right now. One set of younger black people are telling him, well, you need to come out with a statement that explains your position. And then the other set of older black people are saying like, no, if anything, you come out and you just go harder. Because part of what it is to be an American president or a presidential candidate is to show the rest of the American that you own black people. So he just had his Sister Soldier moment a little bit early. All right. So the concrete universal is a universal that determines its particularizations. And an abstract universal is a universal that it just happens to be identified in each one of these particulars. But you don't know anything else about you don't know the form or the function of the particular other than it has this quality. The question is, in what way is being black a concrete universal? What else does it determine about its particularization? What else does it determine about its instance? For Joe Biden, it determines that you will behave a certain way. That you will function for the Democratic Party in a certain way. And we just have to think about what it means that he has so much authority over the concrete universal, which is the black identity. And what does that mean for black people? Is that the way we secure justice? By behaving the way Joe Biden expects us to behave? I'm not sure that is. I think we might need to frustrate. All right, so here's the deal. You only have leverage if you can frustrate the aims of the person you want leverage over. I mean, you want to do what you want them to do. So if we want Joe Biden to actually, govern with us in interest, we need to show that we can frustrate his aims. We cannot frustrate his aims if he owns us. And we need to think about not just Joe Biden, but have him as a stand-in for the entire Democratic Party or the American government. If you're not willing to frustrate their aims, then they own you. Right? And Joe Biden aims to be president, and we're not willing to frustrate their aims. So all they have to do is make Trump some absolute bad. The truth is, and if you're watching this show, you might not know this, Trump isn't an absolute bad. He isn't an absolute bad. We just need to be honest with that. And I think, and you heard it here first, I think black men are going to go for Trump about 25% because honestly, black male wages, the way Trump talks about immigration hasn't been the worst thing for black men, right? So I think black men are going to go for Trump at 25%, which is going to be enough for one, black men to be blamed for Trump's victory. And two, it's going to be enough because you need black men to come, at 18 or 15% for Trump. And they're going to go 20, 25, which I think, honestly, I don't think anybody deserves more than 70% of the vote unless you're actually nobody, I don't think any candidate deserves more than 70% of the black vote unless they're actually talking about reparations in the trillions. Right. So since nobody's doing that, I'm actually not mad at the 25% of black people who are going to vote for Trump. I'm not going to be one of them, but they can do what they need to do, and I'm okay with that. So, how does being black determine what you do? Joe Biden has a very concrete notion of the content of how being black determines what you could do. It's not an abstract, it's a concrete universal that not only identifies who is black, but determines their behavior based on the universal. It also serves as a normative standard. So if Charlemagne the God doesn't vote for Joe Biden, he is bad at being black. That's what's all entailed in Joe Biden's judgment. So we have to think about what that means, that Joe Biden gets to decide at who is good at being black and who is bad at being black by setting the normative standard for black behavior. I don't know. It'd be one thing if white women were to call out the women who voted for Trump and say that they were bad at being women. They were bad at the job of being women, but they don't. They're just like, oh, I don't know what happened. I can't believe they did that. Well, they did, and they will again, probably at higher numbers. So just think about that. So you have to, it's another thing. I said before that the way Barack Obama acts like an African slave trader who just hands over an entire nation of Negroes to the Democratic Party is something we should really be ashamed of and not take so well. I'm not a huge fan of Barack Obama. I think he thought of the entire job as his own self-actualization, which was why he became rich. And the Democrats lost, 816 state legislative seats and 13 governor's mansions, because he was only ever good at getting himself elected and apparently getting himself rich, and was also very good at confusing people about what it meant to be a Democrat and what justice looks like for black people. So I'm not a huge fan of Barack Obama, but I think he successfully has convinced both black Americans and Joe Biden that Biden owns us. He has transferred the deed of the black electorate from himself to Biden, and we haven't done anything to disabuse Obama of the notion that he has successfully done that. And that might be a problem for a few different reasons, because we don't exist for Obama's self-actualization. We don't exist for Biden's self-actualization. We don't exist to resist. We exist for our own self-determination. And insofar as the Democratic Party actually secures the conditions for our self-determination, the political conditions, and will work with us to secure the conditions of our political self-determination, then they're our party. And if they won't, then they're our enemies. And we should look to see how and when we should frustrate them in their aspirations. So I hope that was clear. I hope you've learned something about the distinction between a concrete and an abstract determination. An abstract determination determines a particular differentiated forms, whereas, no, I said that wrong. A concrete determination determines its particularizations, whereas an abstract determination just picks out a characteristic in all sorts of different determinations. So if we're dealing in a world with concrete determinations, I think, one, we need to figure out who has the authority over deciding what's the content of the determination. So if being black is supposed to determine not just my pigment of skin, but my behavior, how I am to perform, we need to have a meeting over about what the content of these rules are that I must abide by in order to be a good Negro. Right? Because I do think there is content. But I do not think it's good to have Joe Biden decide, or anyone in the CBC decide what that content is. All right. I hope this is, hey, if you like anything I'm doing, go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com. Go ahead. All this costs money. And I want to give you guys a quality of knowledge that you're not going to get anywhere else. So go ahead and give me $5, $15, or $50 a month, or make a one-time enormous donation, and that will be good for the quality of the discourse. Also, share this video, put it on your Facebook, on your social media, on your WhatsApp, on your Twitter, and get everyone knowing, because people need the quality of knowledge that I try to dispense every week, and talk about it. Talk about it. What does it mean to have your color of skin be a concrete determination that actually determines your function and form, not just be some sort of abstract quality that you happen to share with, I'm black, the microphone's black, and yeah. So what does it actually mean? And what does it mean, since we're people, we could choose, this sets up a normative. That means a standard for behavior. That means if I do not behave like the universal dictates me that I should behave, because I forget what I am and who I am, then I am a bad black. If I vote for someone who's not Biden. So what does that mean? That these concrete universals actually turn into normative standards. Is that necessarily bad, or is it just bad because it shouldn't be Joe Biden who decides what the normative standard of blackness is? Also, I have a strong feeling that Tim Wise or Rachel Dolezal will have no problem explaining to black people why Joe Biden is right. And that's a problem. Also, all these talking heads you see on television right now who are providing cover for Joe Biden, the presidency, access to the presidency means a good job. These guys are just auditioning for the new job. It's like a casting call. Every time Joe Biden says something stupid, it's a big casting call. And whoever wants a good job in his administration, or next to someone who wants a good job in the administration, is going to try to go on TV and lay cover for Joe Biden. The problem is Joe Biden's a problem. One, I think he raped Tara Reid. Two, it's crime Bill Joe. It's not like he spent his last 40 years in public service trying to secure justice or clarify the fight for the American Negro. So I'm going to need something a little bit more from Joe. And with that, I will talk to you another time. Peace. Oh, if you want to know more about the concrete and abstract universal, there's a fantastic article written by a guy named Michael Foster. It's called The Concrete Universal. Fantastic article. I mean, Winfield writes a lot about concrete and abstract universals, but this article, it's 12 pages? No, 21 pages long, and it's actually, I'm going to do an entire unit in the next class I teach logic and critical thinking on abstract and concrete universals, because there are actually finer distinctions in different varieties of concrete universals that are very important. And it turns out that freedom is a concrete universal, but I could talk about that. Maybe I'll talk about that next week. Freedom as a concrete universal. And with that, I'm going to let you go. Peace.